Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Play on GAA with me, Seamus Brady, as your host. And for this one, I am joined by Matthew Hurley, the GAA Statsman. We're going to give a rundown of all the action, all the news which happened in the GAA over the weekend. First, Matt, how's things? How are you keeping? Are you enjoying the club championship this year?
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Seamus. Lovely to be on with you. Like, geez, it's been a long time no see. A bit like Aaron last night on GF on TV as well. It feels like ages since I've talked to, Dublin people. I've talked to Cork people in the last few weeks. But yeah, it's great to have a change. But yeah, I've enjoyed the club championships, even going down to junior. I've been to junior final now yesterday in West Cork, some jubilant seats at the end of it. So, yeah, brilliant club championship so far. And we were saying off air that it's hard to keep up with all the club action. And I think you're the same. I think every other GA influencer is the same. There's a lot going on. And even in that discussion with Aaron was mentioning Trillicker out of the Tyrone Championship. There's not more struggling in Mayo. Like Kilcoo only went through by virtue of healthy shootouts. Like there was a lot going on over the weekend. And it's kind of hard to keep it up with it all. And hopefully we'll do so. We'll try our best anyway in this episode here.
Yeah, now for this one, we're going to focus strictly on the hurling action, which took place over the weekend, because the football, I'll get around to it. There's more videos to come here on the channel. Make sure you keep an eye out for them. But I'm going to flick through every news article I can find, look up every club championship, see what I can find that happened over the weekend. Because my God, 32 club championships on at once. It's pretty hard to keep up with them all. So let's start, give you a break from the Cork action. Let's start with the Dublin Hurling Quarter Finals. So the first game that we're going to look at is the rivalry. Na Fianna against St. Vincent's, two clubs that are, extremely close to each other, 5 minutes away from each other on Griffith Avenue. Na Fianna 119, Vincent 17 points. Now, I said that in the preview that I made that I did think Na Fianna were going to win this. I was surprised that they finished third in the group, actually. Of course, seconds away from winning the Dublin Championship last season before that Ronan Hayes goal. But they beat a very good St. Vincent side here. Like, we're looking at Vincent's have the McBrides, they've Reen, they've Keane, they've Darroch. They have as well John Heatherton. They have Dara Perry in goal. They have a very, very strong side. Na Fianna beating them 119 to 17 points. That is a very, very impressive achievement. And into the semi-final now they go.
Exactly. And I was hearing from other Dublin fans that John Heatherton, he had a good game for Vincent in the first half, and then they moved him to the back line in the second half. And yeah, it was a terrible decision, and he got a red card then. So yeah, that wasn't a particularly good move by the Vincent's management there. But yeah, fair play to the Fianna through to the next round. And they'll be hungry after last year, after losing that final, because honestly, I watched that Dublin Hurling final last year and I thought the Fianna were by far the better team against Kilmacud that year. And they probably deserve to win it. Donald Burke, I've said it before, I'll say it again, he's an outstanding hurler. But yeah, Vincent's, they've had a good run so far. And Rian McBride, I've always rated him as a hurler. So yeah, they were lucky not to win this game, but on the Fianna go, and I think the Fianna, the hurt from last year will probably carry them through to win the Dublin Hurling Championship. I think they could do it. I think they'll be a decent team and difficult to beat. I know Kilmacud, I think are still there. Correct me if I'm wrong, no, Seamus, but
Yeah.
yeah, the two of them will be going hell for leather, and yeah, I actually fancy the Fianna because I thought even last year when I watched that RT, I thought they were very, very unlucky to lose that final. It was basically 2 goals at the end, which killed them. So, yeah, to get over a game like this, a tough rivalry, as you said, that would give them huge confidence. And on to the next round they go.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, I agree completely what you were saying. Sean Curry that day shot the lights out, 10 points from play. Like, how he's not starting for Dublin is beyond me to this day. Like, he looked in that game the exact forward that we've needed for the last 5 years. But in this game, yeah, I think they just kept that little bit ahead of St. Vincent's. And as you mentioned, the red card for John Heatherton, 10 minutes from time, that did kind of put the nail in Vincent's coffin. And now Na Fianna go into the last four. And I think absolutely they're right up there as contenders. But the last four, if you're talking pedigree, I think that the last four in the Dublin Hurling Championship is the four with the most pedigree. You've got Kilmacud Crokes, they're the current champions. You've got Ballyboden St. Enda's, who've been the royalty of Dublin Hurling over the last 15, 20 years. Like, they've had the bulk of the Dublin squads always. Like Stephen Heine, Conall Keeney, Paul Ryan, they all played for Ballyboden. And, they won most of the club championships over the last 10, 15 years. They're in the semi-final. against Kilmacud Crokes. And then Na Fianna are playing against Coola, who obviously back-to-back All-Ireland club champions over the last decade. Like, the pedigree is there in the last 4. Coola have won all 4 of their group games. 4 out of 4. Crokes are the same. So, I mean, if Na Fianna can get over Coola, then I actually really would fancy them to go and win the whole thing, because Coola looked damn good this year. Obviously, Eddie Brennan there. Sean Moran looks back to his best at centre-back. Like, they're looking savage this year. And with Conor O'Callaghan up front, like, who'd back against them? The other quarter-final, Ballyboden St. Enda beating Lucan Sarsfields by 221 to 23 points. Big shout-out has to go to Paul Ryan, a goal and 8 points. Niall McMorrow had a goal and 3. Conal Keeney, who just turned 40 years of age, was crucial. But is there maybe a slight concern that Ballyboden still are relying on these players?
It kind of is, really. Like, Conal Keeney, 40 years of age, as you said. Even in the football last week, that point near the sideline, that went viral, and rightly so. What a score that was. And we're talking about old fellas still doing it. I'm sure Colin Parkinson would be delighted with this. But what an achievement for Conal Keeney. And he's still doing it at that age. Maybe for football, I think is more, energy consuming. Hurling, you don't really need energy. So I think the game kind of suits him. But to do it dually at 40 years of age, I think it's admirable, really, from Conal Keeney. I think it's absolutely incredible. But as you said, they are relying on the old guard. This is a big problem with Ballyboden. Like, Kilmacud, they're last year's champions. They have good young players. I think does Ron Hayes play for Kilmacud? Yeah, Ron Hayes is one good young player. They've good young players all over the field. So it's basically a battle, really, between young and old, between Kilmacud and Ballyboden. So, like, I'd have to back Kilmacud in that game, but who knows? Ballyboden might put something over the fire. They usually do with football and hurling, to be fair to them. Like, even the football a few weeks back, like, I thought Ballyboden had them, but then Ballyboden came back into the game with 4 goals. They do the same at hurling as well. Like, they're that kind of a club. They're kind of a club that never say die, no matter what players they're playing against. So, yeah, I think that's admirable for Ballyboden. But look at the sides left. Arguably, I would say Ballyboden are probably the weakest out of the 4. I don't know what you think about that, Seamus, but to me, it looks that way.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that, to be honest. I think, like, obviously Ballyboden did get the better of the likes of St. Vincent's and stuff like that in the past. And you have to say, in terms of pedigree and what they've won, they're probably the best in terms of, like, what the players on the team have done. Paul Ryan, Conal Keeney, like, they've a lot of Leinster medalists in that team. But the one massive concern I'd have for Ballyboden, and this cannot be ignored, is when we're talking about the age profile of their team and maybe questions over, are they relying on lads who maybe their best days are behind them. Ballyboden, in the football anyway, against Ballantyre St. John's, and this is relevant because they were ahead comfortably going into the last 10 minutes, and then they conceded 2 goals and a point in 4 minutes. And Ballantyre almost pulled them back and won the game. Now in the hurling, they were comfortable going into the last 10 minutes. And then Lucan hit 5 points to their 1 point in the last 7 minutes, bringing the gap right back down to 2 points. Like, Ballyboden are struggling to get over the line in the last few minutes. They're starting to crumble right towards the end of the game. And as we've seen with Kilmacud Crokes, they didn't stop going till the very last second against Na Fianna, and they kicked home in the later minutes, in the last few minutes of the game. So I think that could really be Ballyboden's undoing.
It could definitely all right. But you see some scenarios in different counties, not my own county or your own county, and other counties in the past, where teams kind of start slow and then they move into the championship. It's kind of like in inter-county as well. Think of, I don't know, Dublin in the last few years. They aren't performing particularly well in Leinster or the league campaign, and then they move in slowly into the year until it reaches August, September, and then they hit full pelt, 5th gear. So I think Ballyboden are kind of leading up to that. Kilmacud, yes, they're a young side, but maybe hammering these teams in earlier rounds, maybe it doesn't really help teams in a way, because we see that when we talk about the Cork Hurling Championship at the minute, Arizona were the top team in the group stages and they got hammered by Blackrock. So I just think, like, if a team does well in the early rounds, that's all well and good. But when it matters is probably later on in the championship. That's what would worry me slightly about Kilmacud. But looking at the two sides that still back Kilmacud to beat Ballyboden because of the age profile. But Ballyboden, in a way, I actually like what they're doing. They're edging, they're getting better game by game a small bit, and they aren't blitzing teams, they aren't giving too much away. So that's a positive for them in a way. So I think that's positive for Ballyboden, but still I'd have to back Kilmacud to win because of the age profile, really.
Yeah, I'm going for Crokes as well in that semi-final. And then can I just quickly get a prediction for the other one? Na Fianna against Coola.
Jeez, this is a tough one now. Like I said, the Fido, I was praising them a minute ago now, but Conor O'Callaghan, you can't ignore his quality up front. Like he is just an absolute machine. And if he played for Dublin Hurlers, there's arguments that around Twitter, Instagram, that they could win the All Ireland. So
I'm not sure. I don't know. I just feel like we were miles off the pace over the last few years. I don't know, got beat by Laois. So I think maybe a few more lads need to come in before we do that. But hey, who knows? Who knows? Micheál Donoghue's at the helm. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'll just get your hopes up there, Seamus. That's what I'm here for. He's an outstanding player. He's an absolutely outstanding player, Conor O'Callaghan, and one of the best in the country. If he did play hurling, he would be up there with one of the best at the moment. And would he be in legendary status? That's another conversation for another day. But he's an absolute brilliant hurler. And
I agree. I agree. He'd be right up there as one of the best forwards in the country because he's been the best forward in the Dublin Club Championship over the last 4 or 5 years. And it definitely has been a problem in Dublin in the last 10, 15 years. Kieran Kilkenny, Cormac Costello, a lot of people thought they were actually better hurlers in the minor year that year than they were footballers. But of course, naturally, they picked the football. They won all those All-Irelands. They made the right decision for their careers. But if Cormac Costello, Kieran Kilkenny, Conor O'Callaghan, Eric Lowndes, if they'd all picked hurling, like Dublin would be in so much of a better position.
They would, yeah. It's kind of you have to bridge that gap as well. It's the same as Cork. Well, Galway's a bit different though because North Galway's football, South Galway's hurling. Maybe that's the way to do it, to be fair to them. Tipperary have the same issue as well. Clare maybe not so much. Offaly in the early years when they were actually good, but they are coming into it now. In fairness to them, they might have a few issues with those players as well. But mainly Cork and Dublin is probably the two counties where that suffers the most. The hurlers suffer in Dublin and the footballers suffer in Cork. But getting back to the game anyway, I just think I know Conor O'Callaghan is an unreal player, absolutely incredible. But I think the Fianna, I just think the hurt from last year will carry them to the final. I just fancy this in the Fianna team. As you mentioned, Sean Curry's an outstanding player. I think Liam Rush is in that team as well. He's one of the best hurlers in Dublin. So, they have an outstanding team all over the field, the Fianna side. So I'm going to say the Fianna in the final against Kilmacud repeated last year. And definitely I'll be looking forward to that, judged by last year's final.
Yeah, I mean, either way, it'll be absolutely outstanding. I'm going to go with Coola. I think I really like Eddie Brennan as a coach. I like the 4 in a row there victories, but I wouldn't be surprised if Na Fianna get it done. Now, bringing you back to where you have been covering for the last while, the Cork Hurling semi-finals. First of all, you mentioned about Aaron's Own winning every game in the group, and then they go and they lose to Blackrock. Did you see that coming?
Well, in a way, because Aaron's Own were probably the shock team of the group stage. They don't particularly have good inter-county players. Well, Robbie O'Flynn is one anyway. I think he scored a ridiculous amount yesterday. I wasn't watching the match now, but I knew Robbie O'Flynn would anyway. He's an outstanding player in the club championship, but it was really only him carrying Aaron's Own in this game. And Blackrock, with a clear manager, Louis Balquin, I probably butchered that name now, but he's the manager of Blackrock. He's from Clare originally, and he's doing an outstanding job. But what I will say about Blackrock, and this is a prime example with what I was mentioning about Ballyboden earlier, Blackrock really performed really, really poorly in the group stage, and they only relied on a last-minute goal to get them to a penalty shootout against Emo Kelly in the quarterfinals. So they performed really poor in their group games. Like SARS should have beat them in the first day. They got beat by the Bars. It was 1 point. It could have been more, and the Bars and Blackrock are in the final as well. Charleville, they could have lost that as well. And Charleville are only promoted from Cedar A in the last few seasons. So if Blackrock were to lose that would be pretty embarrassing for a county champion for 2020. So, and then in the quarters, they had to rely on late goal and poor penalties from Emo Kelly to get them to the semi-final stage. And now they're hitting gear. Now they've hit a purple patch. And I think that's the prime example, really. Blackrock, they performed poorly in the first day, second day, whatever. And now they're hitting form once it matters most. Once we get to Parky Keeve, once we get to the business end of the championship. But Erin's Zone, I think they'll be disappointed. They performed well in the group stage. They were unbeaten. I think they got 5 points over the possible 6. So they did pretty well in the group stage, and they just flattered to deceive, other than Robbie O'Flynn, who performed excellent. But the Rockies, they are through to the final now, and Alan Connolly's a brilliant player. Ty Deasy's very good. Michael O'Halloran's underrated as well. So they've good players all over the field, Blackrock, but I think they'll find it difficult in the final because the Bars, as we'll mention later, are a pretty damn good side.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I mean, massive shout out. You're absolutely right. Robbie O'Flynn, 12 points, 7 of them from play. Like, that's absolutely outstanding. On the Blackrock side, what I like is their spread of scores. I mean, 9 points from Alan Connolly, 1-4 from Ty Deasy, 1-2 from Michael O'Halloran. I think it was 1-3 from Robbie Cotter. That's very impressive, and a lot of different threats, whereas I feel like Aaron's only right. We're very reliant on Robbie O'Flynn, and he did deliver, but they needed more than that. You mentioned there about Finbarrs. They ended a 29-year wait for a Cork Senior Hurling final spot. Were you impressed with them?
Well, again, I wasn't watching this game yesterday. I was watching the Jewellery Carberry final, but I've watched Bars in the previous rounds. I watched them against SARS. I was at that game. I watched them against the Rockies, and I watched a bit of them against Douglas, and I thought they were absolutely superb. I like the look of this team now. They're very similar to the footballers. Like, the strength and conditioning of this Bars team is absolutely incredible. And I said this on Aaron's podcast as well, that if the Bars were to win Cork, I'd actually think they could go on a run in Munster. They're that kind of a team. I think they're very, very good. They're good all over the fields. They have the Catalans coming from Castlehaven, and the caveat to this now, the Catalans played for the Hurlers now yesterday, and they're going to play for Castlehaven against the Bars next Sunday in the football. So, like, geez, they're going to face their teammates there. It's going to be all hell breaking loose. But yeah, they've very good hurlers all over the field. Ben O'Connor, who plays 3 sports, by the way, rugby, Gaelic football, and hurling. You've Ethan Toomey there, who's an excellent player in both codes. Brian Hayes, again, we all know how good he is in both codes. So, yeah, I think the Bars, they look pretty good. And I think sending off for Newtown Chandram really swung the game in a way. But nevertheless, I thought the Bars would have won this game easily anyway. Like, Newtown really had to rely on Patrick Harkin being missing in the quarterfinal for Glen Rovers to get over the line to reach the semi-final. So they got kind of lucky there. And they're kind of reliant on a 35-year-old Cathal Naughton for scores. So they aren't particularly good. So maybe the Bars were on an easy side of the draw. Genuinely think the Bars will be set to win the final. And who knows? They could go for a double. Like a historic double in Cork. It's never been, I think it's only been done by the Bars only a few times. So it's going to be a brilliant achievement if they do it, especially in a big county like Cork. It's an unreal achievement if they manage to do it. And I think they have the players in both codes to definitely do it.
Oh, I agree. Like, Brian Hayes is a footballer that I've been keeping an eye on massively. They've got Stephen Sherlock on the football side. He's one of the best forwards right now, I think, in the country. I think he's brilliant. I think a massive shout has to go to Ben Cunningham, a goal in 10. And then up until this point, he's been shooting the lights out. He's definitely the one, in my opinion, that they need to keep an eye on in the final because he's been absolutely tearing it up in the Cork Championship. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Finbarrs are going to take it. I think they're going to win the Cork Hurling. It'll be interesting to see if they can do it in the football. Before we wrap up, quick word on the Tipperary Championship. Drom-and-Inch, of course, beating Loughmore-Castleiney, the Tipperary champions. A victory as well for Kiladangan. What did you think about the weekend's action? Loughmore out?
Yeah, it's a shock. Even Lucan Sarsfields out. I think Needy O'Rourke are out as well. Like, there's a load of big sides out in this championship. I'm actually intrigued to see how it progresses now. Kiladangan are there. You look at Drom-and-Inch. Well, Drom-and-Inch, in fairness, I think they have Shay McCannon in that team. So he's a pretty good player to have, in fairness to them. Or is he? He might be injured, actually. And if he is injured, that's some achievement for Drom-and-Inch to do it all without him. I mean, it's absolutely superb if they are doing it without him, of course. But I'd be interested to see the winners of this because it will be a novel winner. Tour de Sarsfields out, Loughmore-Castleiney out. We're going to get a new winner of Tipperary, but I kind of worry about the Tipperary champions once they reach Munster because they don't have the pedigree really to challenge the side. I think they're on the side of Limerick and Ballygunner from Waterford. So, I mean, that's a hard side of the draw, really. In Limerick, you could get Patrick's Well, you could get the Piershig. I mean, I think in Munster they will struggle, but for the winner of this championship, it'll be a novel winner, and I'm all for it. It'll be a brilliant year for the Tipperary Hurling Championship. A bit of a change at last.
Yeah, agreed. To quickly recap on the other action that's happened in the all the club hurling championships, Shane O'Donnell hit a goal and 9 points in his club's victory in the quarter final. Ballyea and Éire getting victories there in the Clare quarter finals. Naas and Slough-Neil maintained their dominance over the Kildare Hurling Championships and the Derry Hurling Championships respectively. And then in the Kilkenny Championship, 2 sides booked their place in the semi-finals. James Stephens and Tullaroan, they're both into the semi-finals after hard-fought wins in the quarter-finals. What's your thoughts briefly on all that action?
Well, first of all, with I think you see this at TG Carr, it was a disgrace what happened at Cusack Park with Jason McCarthy getting the injury, broken ankle. I wish him a speedy recovery after that. But for an ambulance to arrive at the stadium an hour later, I mean, in the modern day, I mean, it's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. And yeah, Clare G, you should be ashamed of yourselves what happens on Sunday. And TG Carr basically had to cut it off at the end of the game as well. And it was a shame because there was good hurling being played. It was a good spirit of Clare hurling, very good action. And then for that to happen, speedy recovery to Jason McCarthy, but for the ambulance to come onto the pitch late in that game. I mean, imagine if it was a life-threatening situation there. I mean, for God's sake, why couldn't they get an ambulance around the stadium? You know, I think it's basic. It should be basic nowadays, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen, and it was an absolute disgrace. And yeah, as for the other ones, the one that points out really is James Stephens in the semi-final, Brian Cody. If he gets to the All-Ireland final, no, I'd actually love if James Stephens win it because it'll be the ultimate end of a fairy tale that Brian Cody deserves because he's been an outstanding coach. I think that'd be absolutely brilliant if James Stephens win the All-Ireland or indeed beat Ballyhale in the final. That'd be good. Yeah, exactly. TJ Reid there as well. Like should be very, very interesting. And I wish James Stephens the best because other than Cork clubs, they'd be probably my pick to win the All-Ireland though. I genuinely want them to win the All-Ireland just for Cody, because it'll be an unbelievable end for an unbelievable manager.
Yeah, just before we do wrap up, obviously the club championship is now in full swing. I've talked about, the usual suspects, and then a few teams have gone, like Loughmore are gone. We've got teams that were kind of in contention last year are, making their way through. You've got Ballygunner winning the Waterford Championship for the 9th year in a row. Absolutely incredible achievement there. You've got, the Cork final with Finbarrs, that's your pick to go through. Ballyea, of course, making their way to the semi-finals again. Ballyhale Shamrock still floating about. Like, who are you kind of looking at this year? Who's your early pick now of a team to watch potentially for the All-Ireland?
Well, on GAA Fan TV, I said, who did I say would win the All-Ireland? I said Knockmore, someone would win the All-Ireland, and then they lost in Connacht. They bombed out of it. So, make your prediction this early is really, really risky.
It's a minefield, yeah.
I'm going to try anyway. I think the Bars will come out of Cork, as I said. Probably Ballyea and Clare. That side the draw is confirmed. I think the Bars will be in the Munster final if that's the case. On the other side of the draw, I think Ballygunner against a Limerick champion would be so mouth-watering. The Piershig or Patrick's Well or somebody like that. That'd be just absolutely unbelievable. I think Ballygunner, they're just a superb side. Yeah. All over the field. I like the Bars, but I think Ballygunner will win Munster again. I just can't look past them. They're an unbelievable side. Galway, you'd have to suspect St. Thomas's or someone will make it out of there. Probably Slough-Neil up at Ulster. In Leinster, I'm hoping for James Stephens, so I'm going to go with them. And I'm going to go for the fairy tale. I'm going to go James Stephens to win the All-Ireland. Why not? I'm going to go Brian Cody to win the All-Ireland in his final year of management. What a fairy tale ending that would be.
Yeah, no, definitely a good show. I mean, it's definitely that glass ceiling in Kilkenny to get past Ballyhale. And I feel like if you got past them, what's stopping you going the whole way? I mean, look at what Ballyhale, look at how they struggled against teams in Kilkenny and then what they did to Clock Ballycolla in the Leinster Hurling Final. I mean, that should be illegal what they did to for Clock Ballycolla. They absolutely tore them limb from limb. And this was a Clock Ballycolla side that had just beaten Kilmacud Crokes. So Ballyhale are just ridiculously strong. I'm going Ballygunner though. I think the quality they have and the fact now that they've gotten the monkey off the back in terms of they've finally done it, they finally won a Club All Ireland. I'm thinking now that they might get the bit between their teeth and say, let's go win another. Let's go create an era of, a Ballygunner, run championship, because they've got the likes of Stephen O'Keefe, Barry Coughlin, Philip Mahoney that are definitely good enough to still be playing for Waterford, but they don't. And they might be just, purely focused on the hurling championship with Ballygunner, and that serves them quite well. So I'm going Ballygunner, but thoroughly enjoying the club championship so far. I think it's been great. Matt, been great having you on again. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks very much, Seamus. Lovely to come on, and hopefully we'll do this again in the next few weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. Thanks everyone for watching. Until next one, take care.